Autumn for Black Tree, written and read by Oliver Tonic. This is a completed novella, read as a series. This is episode 18, the last episode of the series. If you want to hear it from the beginning, go to the first video on my channel. Now, let's say our goodbyes to Barley and Paxis. Episode 18. Black Tree Fall. The two traveled out of the village with their things, and Paxis tried not to look back. She didn't let herself until they reached the outskirts of the valley. From high up, she could finally look down into all that she was leaving behind. They sat together on a flat boulder as the wind blew past them and down into the multicolored trees of the land below. All the marks of fall had become apparent as the trees blazed with vibrance on the landscape and the cool touched the daylight air. "What is Reza like?" Paxis asked, looking up at Barley. Barley cocked his head from side to side. "It has its problems, like anywhere, but it was a fine place to grow up." Paxis mused for a bit. "Paxis of Reza," she said. She let it hang there in the air for a moment. "It's a lot cleaner than Paxis of Onan and Black Tree." She beamed as she looked at him. "I agree." They made their way to their new home, and before they got too far, they reached the spot where their journey together had begun. Before them stood the tree that Paxis had heard crying in the forest. They approached it with its charcoal black tendrils and its thick, bituminous, and devious trunk. She got close and touched it. The wood was still hard and as cold as stone. Its surface was still rough to the touch. The only difference that Paxis noticed now were the orange and red leaves crowning its contorted branches. It was beginning to match the forest as autumn arrived. "It's changing color," she said as she marveled at its contrast of bright, warm foliage and sooty pitch bark. Things had changed so much since she had found this tree. When she followed the whimpers, she never thought it would end up like this. "Yeah, but it won't survive the season," Barley said. "How do you know?" "Well," he said, rubbing it, "the feeding source it used to have is gone, thanks to you." He smiled and bumped his fist against its hard trunk. He looked up as the wind blew and caught a few of the canopy's red leaves. They drifted off and landed nearby. "Without a healthy root system feeding off of something good, it'll die once the cold of winter comes. It won't come back in the spring like the rest." They left the place of uprooted trees, and Paxis looked back at the gnarled former home of her knight. She couldn't imagine how anything good could have ever come from it. "You know," said Barley, "I hate to tell you this, but if you are going to be my hunting partner, you ought to know that I occasionally need to grow crops between my bounties." He scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "We'll need the extra money." Pax's eyebrows drew together. "I hope that's not a stumbling point for you," he said. She looked at him and laughed. He laughed with her. "I'm okay to farm," she said. "Just no mushrooms, of any kind, ever." Barley chuckled. "It's a deal." Paxis leaned into him and squeezed his right arm. In all honesty, she knew that she was okay with growing whatever she needed to. She would just make sure that this time, it was sown with love. Thank you for listening to Autumn for Black Tree. If for some reason you missed it from the beginning, the first chapter is called The Weeping Tree and is the first video on my channel, as well as the first in the Autumn for Black Tree playlist. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. Like, subscribe, and follow me at Tonic Torrents on Instagram and Facebook. Support this book and my continued writing through Patreon. More tales are coming, so stay subscribed and stick around. I have more stories to tell you.